Online learning does not have to be scary. And Madison College was there for me.
We have people that are dedicated to our students' online success.
We can help you with your technology. Give us the college try for 7 days. No risk, no worries. Madison College.
Good afternoon, folks. This is Robert Chappell, Executive Editor at Madison365 with your daily update for Friday, December 11th. It's so weird to say, like it literally is weird to say, but I think it's pretty good news today. The fact that the COVID numbers have not gotten worse, and in fact in many cases have gotten better. It's feeling like it's real. Like for a while there, it was just, it's Thanksgiving holiday, people weren't getting tested, deaths weren't being reported, but all that is kind of in the past now. That's like well over, 2 weeks ago, Thanksgiving was. So it's feeling like these better numbers are actually representing reality. So, what are those better numbers? Here's, and if you have any questions or comments, go ahead and put them in the comments below, and I will I'll answer any questions you have as we go along here. So, the just sort of the big top line numbers: 3,848 new cases today. I'm sorry, 3,858. Sorry. On about 11,000 tests. So, that testing is still a little bit on the low side. We'd like to see more tests than that. But it's not like so low that it makes me question the results. We'd get a better picture, and we'd definitely have more positive tests if we had more tests. But at some point, like you don't want to inflate the numbers, but then again, you do want to find those people who are carrying the virus around, right? So we'd like to see more testing. However, 11,000 is okay, I guess. 5 days ago we saw less than 8,000, which is way too low. Okay, so the fact that we're at 11,000 tests is fine. 35% of today's tests returning positive results. That's not good. It's higher than yesterday, which was higher than the day before that. It's lower than Monday, Tuesday, which is 43%. So that number it's kind of, that 1 day number kind of bounces around a little bit, but it's been in the high 20s, low 30s pretty consistently, even high 30s. We don't like that. That's like the one piece of data today that we don't like. That said, the 7-day average, that 1 day average doesn't really tell you a lot. It just tells you the number of tests that were reported today. These weren't even tests that were run today, right? These were tests that just reported today. But if you look at all the tests run over the past 7 days, let me say that again. All the people who were tested over the past 7 days, 28.1% of them tested positive. Yesterday, that number was 28.7%. So that's still a very, very high number. If the government was allowed to respond appropriately to those numbers, that number would be way too high to have anything open. Like, that number would cause any other state to shut down completely. Okay, so let's be real about that. Similarly, the number of total tests that came back positive over the past 7 days was 11.7%. Which is to say, many people get multiple tests a week because they're healthcare workers, or they're working on campus, or they're teachers, or that kind of thing. So, of all the tests processed in the past 7 days, 11.7% came back positive, which again would spur almost any other state to shut down completely. It's a very high number. However, yesterday, that was 12.3. A week ago, that was well over 13. And when we're looking at all these numbers, every day I come on here and I tell you, it's the trends. we have to think about. We are going in the right direction. Why are we going in the right direction? I don't know. It really might be just this whole past week and a half the testing has been relatively low. So we may not be getting a full picture of what's really happening on the ground. But I feel like there's enough testing here that that's not the case. I feel like that we have a pretty good picture of what's going on. And even if we're off by a little bit, like, it's not drastically worse than this. There's not like a drastic, horrible infection that we just aren't aware of. There's some, certainly. We don't know why testing is down, though. There's a few theories. People just aren't getting tested because they're not thinking about it, or they don't want it. They don't want the positive result, so they can go to Christmas, that kind of thing. But again, the testing is down, but it's not like there's no testing. I was saying in October and into November that I didn't see any way that this would slow down. That the way things were going on, back then, when our positive test rates were well into the 30s, and our daily cases were getting up over 6,000, that I didn't see any means by which this would be mitigated. That I didn't see any way that it would slow down. There was no force. There was no external force that was going to slow it down. There was no stay-at-home order. The mask mandate is technically in effect, but it wasn't really being followed that much or enforced. But it seems as if there was a sort of a reckoning during that period of time, during that late October into sort of up toward mid-November time period, when people started to go out and stock up at Costco again, or started to order groceries again, and started, I think, a significant number of people started to act in November the way we were all acting in March and April. Staying home more, wearing a mask more, sanitizing more, going shopping less frequently, stocking up on stuff, right? And I think there are a lot of people who aren't doing that, right? There are lots of people who are still going out to bars and whatever. But I think enough people change their habits that we've actually turned a corner a little bit, which is really encouraging. Peggy has a good question, and this is a little wonky for me to try to explain, so bear with me a second. The daily average is so concerning. It is. Don't understand how the 7-day average is going down when the daily number seems consistently bad. The reason that they're different, and I will attempt to explain this, and I probably won't do a very good job. The reason they're different is that, as I mentioned, the 11,000 tests and 3,858 positive results today were just reported today. Right? Those weren't tested today. And those 11,000 tests actually get allocated to previous days. And we don't really get into that. I have a chart for that. But I don't really get into that because it just gets too much down in the weeds and it gets too confusing. But basically, those 11,000 tests, some were actually from like Monday, some were from Tuesday, some were from Wednesday. And once you take those 11,000 tests and spread them out over the days that they were actually run, that's where you get the 7-day number. I hope that makes a little sense. So that's why they're different. But the fact is that when you're talking about a single day, you're talking about people, and you're talking about 7 days, you're talking about both people and tests. Nobody's getting multiple tests on the same day, really. I hope that helps, because like of that 11,000, there will be like 3,000 that were run on Tuesday, and of those 600 were positive, and then another 4,000 on Wednesday, which already had some certain number of positive results. And so when those get spread out and added to the totals on the days they were actually run, that's where you get the 7-day average. So again, it's just a matter of when they actually happened versus when they were reported in our data. So I hope that helps. Now let's talk about fatalities today. And again, we have 48 deaths reported today. But then there was one taken out of the data. So our total goes up by 47 to 3,991. So we will pass 4,000 tomorrow. I'm pretty sure. The deaths today were reported in Waukesha County with 6. Douglas, Columbia, Milwaukee each reported 4. Marathon, Fond du Lac, Barron, Dane, and Sheboygan each reported 3. Washington and Kenosha each reported 2, and then Wapaka, Oneida, Green Lake, Greene, Dunn, Calumet, Buffalo, Rock, Pierce, Monroe, and Winnebago each reported 1. And again, those are not people who died today. Those are people who died over the past couple of weeks. Their death certificates have been finally put into the database, the statewide database. So that's all that is. But that's still a lot. That puts our daily death average now. This is fascinating. The 7-day average drops. It was 54 yesterday. Now it is 42.3. The 14-day average is 52, and the 30-day average is 51. The 14-day average yesterday was 50, and it goes up actually today. But those three numbers, the 7-day, the 14-day, and the 30-day average, all being really close together, just tells you we've been really consistent over the last 30 days in our number of deaths every day. So, which is bad. The 50 deaths a day is bad. Okay, I'm going to give you a sense of how bad that is. I mentioned this yesterday if you were watching. The number one cause of death in Wisconsin and everywhere is heart disease. Heart disease, the daily death rate from heart disease is 31. Like year round, it's year round, right? So this kind of apples and oranges, because this 52 day deaths a day is only for the past month for COVID. So it's not a totally fair comparison, okay? But if this death rate continued for an entire year, COVID would be the leading cause of death in Wisconsin, and by a lot. By a lot. Okay, so this 51 deaths or 52 deaths a day is very bad. However, the way the cases were going in October, November, I was pretty sure that by now we would be in the 70s. So, cold comfort, I guess, a slight silver lining, that even though our cases continued to spike all the way through October, November, now we're at the reverberation part of that 4 weeks later, and we're not seeing a big spike in deaths, which is a sigh of relief for me. That still might go up very high, maybe because it's possible we aren't seeing those. It's possible that there has been kind of a spike in deaths in November and we haven't reported it yet, that we don't have it in our data yet because it does take a little while. And it's also possible that sort of the peak of our November cases was slightly less than 4 weeks ago now. So we might still see that increase in deaths a week or two from now. Okay, fingers crossed that we don't. But I'm finding some measure of comfort in the fact that death rate has been consistent for 30 days and has not gone up. I would like to see it go down. That's not going to happen for a bit, for at least a while. Okay, 7-day total number of cases. 7-day average is now 3,429, which is, better than it was. Still very high. That was over 6,000 at one point. it wasn't very long ago that was like 200, and we thought that was bad. So hospitalizations are also better. The alternate care facility in Milwaukee still has 9 patients. There was 11 yesterday, which means that there are some hospitals, probably in that southeast region, that are full, that are like over full, that have had to move people out early to make room. And I know that anecdotally there are still hospitals that are keeping people in emergency rooms for many, many hours because they don't have a bed to admit them. Like people who go to the emergency room with breathing problems and everything like that and need to be hospitalized, but there's no bed for them, so they just keep them in the emergency room for ages. That's not good. However, the total number of people hospitalized did fall again today. It fell by another... sorry, I thought I had this up. It fell by 36 and is now 1,448, which is... That was over 2,200 not very long ago. Right? It went from about 400 to over 2,000 very, very rapidly, like within a month. So to see that drifting downward is good. It's good news. Now, also, we know that on a national level, we know that hospitals are actually changing the criteria for hospitalizations. So it's probably true that there are. Part of that reason is going down is because hospitals are choosing not to hospitalize people that they should probably hospitalize because they don't have the staff for it. 1/3 of the hospitals in Wisconsin just last week, 1/3 of the hospitals in Wisconsin reported critical staff shortages. So it's not just about the beds, right? It's not just the number of empty rooms. It's the number of staff you have to take care of these people. And you need a lot of staff and resources to take care of people with COVID, right? So the downward drift of hospitalized people, while promising, is not necessarily unmitigated good news. It could be going down because there are people who are at home right now who probably should be in the hospital because the hospitals don't have the room for them or the staff to take care of them. So take that with a grain of salt. But still, we still have not seen a very big influx at the alternative care facility. The highest that's ever been is like 23 people. That place is built for 500. Okay, so the fact that we aren't there yet is okay, right? This is definitely possible, and maybe the economy is so bad people aren't going to the bars or shopping. Or people are depressed and staying home. Definitely all possible. I will also mention this stories about lack of ICU care looming and numbers getting worse in some of the most recalcitrant counties is definitely true. Marathon County comes to mind. Not to blame our friends in Wausau, but Marathon County is one of the counties where people were really, really adamantly opposed to closing schools, adamantly opposed to mask orders, and they have had a ton of cases and a ton of deaths. Not so much in the last few days, but they had a big spike in deaths not very long ago. There's a clear cause and effect there. This is a terrific question, Catherine. Are the records telling how many of the lower hospitalized numbers are released and how many die? No. Is this a short answer? And that's the other. I almost hate to say that every day, and I think I should say it every day, but it's just so depressing to think that we don't know of the there are 36 fewer people in the hospital today than yesterday. How many of those were discharged and how many died? Like that's just really depressing to think about. But it's definitely a possibility, especially in the ICUs. The ICU is down by 4 today. So the easy answer is no. They don't really keep track of that. We just have I can even show you what I'm looking at, if that would help you. Give me 1 second. This is the Wisconsin Hospital Association little dashboard thing. You can see the total COVID patients right here, and then total ICU patients here. And then there are a couple other things like they keep track of hospitals and their supplies. And again, these are and ventilator availability, bed counts. These are again, and you can see that over time how this is, really sharp increase right here and really sharp decline here. And these are statewide numbers. We can look at these by region. For example, Fox Valley region. Takes just a minute to spin. And now you have 86 people there. It's 2 higher than yesterday. 14 people in the ICU. 16 ICU beds available. Only 1 intermediate care. 52 medical beds. 28 negative flow isolation beds. Those are the negative flow isolation rooms are where COVID patients go. Because those are the sort of the super sterile rooms. So Fox Valley seems to be doing okay. So we don't need to go through all the regions, but just to let you know, that's the data that we have easy access to. You can kind of look back later. Like I could probably piece together the data and look back like a month ago, how many people got out of the hospital versus how many died. Just because once you have to wait for all the data to be collected before you can, in hindsight, kind of piece data together. But it's a terrific. That's a great question, Kevin. All right, I think that's kind of all the coronavirus data for today. I have a couple of other news items that I'll mention. If you're in Dane County or Madison area, you will probably be aware that there's going to be a whole bunch of city council races coming up. There's 5 incumbents have decided not to run for re-election, and then a 6th incumbent is facing a pretty serious challenge from 3 different challengers. So we're going to, over the next several weeks, we will have profiles on a lot of these candidates, the candidates of color mainly because of our mission. But one of those is Brian Benford, who actually served 2 terms on the city council already in the early 2000s. He ran in the primary for state senate, to represent Madison, and he is a social worker. He's an advocate. He's 61 years old. He's kind of been a community service guy his whole career. So he's Marcia Rummel is stepping away from council. She's been representing District 6 on the east side for a long time, and Brian Benford has jumped in to run for her seat. So we have a profile on him this morning, and then the other profile we have today is Tremaine Clardy, who's Dr. Tremaine Clardy, who is the chief of chief of middle schools for Madison Metro School District. He was chief of elementary schools before. He's also a principal in the district, and then a teacher in Janesville and Beloit before that. He's one of the 4 finalists to take over as the new superintendent of the Verona area school district, just down the road. Now, Verona school district is very interesting right now as it's growing very rapidly. They just built a brand new high school that looks like a college campus. It is also rapidly diversifying. The city of Fitchburg, much of the city of Fitchburg is actually in the Verona school district. And Fitchburg, if you know anything about this Dane County region, Fitchburg is a ton of Latino influx and a lot of black folks too. So that there's a lot of growth in Fitchburg, and a lot of the growth in those sort of Latino and black neighborhoods. So that Verona district, which was all white when I grew up in Mount Horeb, which is like one town over from Verona. And both high schools were all white when I was a kid. And now Mount Horeb is still mostly white, and Verona is decidedly not. Verona is fantastically diverse. I actually went there to do a story even like 2 years ago now about their Spanish club that was translating the local newspaper into Spanish, which is really cool. And it was just so, like, just shockingly diverse, just walking into the high school. And it was really great to see. It was really, really wonderful to see. But anyway, that presents a certain, degree of opportunity and challenge for a new superintendent. So, 2 of the 4 finalists are black. 2 are white. 1 is a woman, white man, and 2 black men are all vying for that job. So we have a profile of Tremaine Clardy today, just to kind of his background a little bit. Rainey Briggs is the other black candidate. We'll have a profile of him on Monday, I believe. And finally, one other thing just mentioned outside of Madison, Lakeisha Haas is an attorney in private practice, former public defender and a criminal defense attorney, has been appointed to the Winnebago County Circuit Court. So that's like Appleton area. She's the first black judge in Winnebago County. Her predecessor has retired. So Governor Evers appointed Lakeisha Haas to that position. I'm not sure that they said in the announcement how long the term is, because she should have to run for re-election probably to keep the job. But in any case, she's a graduate of Marquette Law School and the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh, so she's been kind of around that Fox Valley area for a while, which is cool. So, and it's kind of crazy that in 2020 we're still having firsts like that, but it's always great to see when there is one. So those are a few of the sort of the news-ish stories that are outside COVID. That there is other stuff happening in the world that we're going to talk about here. So I appreciate your attention. We'll remind you once again, we have about, what's today, the 11th? We have about 3 more weeks of Newsmatch, meaning for the next 3 weeks, if you make a donation in support of local nonprofit community journalism, it goes farther than it would at any other time of the year, because Newsmatch, this program through the Institute for Nonprofit News, will match your donation. It's very simple, with no strings attached and no questions asked. Like we collect donations this time of year, and we send them a spreadsheet of how many donations we got, and they cut us a check for that amount. It's that easy. So you give us $20, they give us another $20. Like your donation goes further and does more for us and works harder for us, just because you got these other big foundations chipping in alongside you. So now's the time. If you're here every day and you value this information that I'm giving you, and you have a few bucks to spare, if that's the privilege you have. There's a lot of people who can't afford the newspaper, or can't afford that digital subscription, right? But those folks, everybody needs to be informed. Everybody deserves to know what's going on in the world, not only with this COVID information, but with elections and with what's happening with the government, what's happening in the corporation, what's happening on the ground, just in your neighborhood. Everybody has the right to be informed. So that's why we never charge for the news. But if you could buy a Madison365 subscription, what would you pay for it? $5 a month? $10 a month? Make that a recurring donation and call that your subscription if you want. By the way, if you do make a recurring donation, Newsmatch matches the entire 12 months worth. So if you go on today, if you go to Madison365.org/donate today and make a recurring donation, it was like $5 a month, they'll match us $60. So not only the $5 you give us this month, but the $5 you give us next month in February and March and April, every $5 they will match. So that's kind of a cool way to do it. So anyway, that's enough fundraising for today. Thanks for your attention, and thanks for joining me today. It is snowing, so drive carefully if you're going anywhere. It's better if you don't go anywhere, if you don't have to. as we know. In the meantime, have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you again tomorrow.
This is 365 Media.